My name is Bernadette, and I'm 32 years old. Just last week, I returned from what should have been a career-defining business trip in San Francisco. For years, I'd worked tirelessly to make my parents proud to be the daughter who never caused trouble, who always had her life together. But the note taped to my bedroom door that Friday night changed everything I thought I knew about family, about loyalty, and about my place in the world. Sometimes the people you sacrifice the most for are the ones who value you the least. Before I share what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, because this story is about finding the strength to walk away and discovering that sometimes the best foundation you can build is the one nobody else can see. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. My parents, David and Margaret, raised me and my younger brother Tyler in a modest apartment in Boston. We'd lived in that same building for over 20 years, a 4-story walk-up in a neighborhood that had slowly gentrified around us. The rent was reasonable because our landlord, an elderly man who'd owned the property since the 1970s, never raised it much. My childhood there was ordinary in most ways, except for one glaring detail. I learned very early that being the oldest meant being invisible. Tyler, 3 years younger than me, was the golden child from the moment he was born. When I brought home straight A's, my parents would nod approvingly and say, "That's what was expected." When Tyler scraped by with C's, they'd celebrate his effort and tell him he was trying his best. I paid for my own college education through scholarships and working 3 part-time jobs. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to stock shelves at a grocery store, attend classes all day, then work evenings at the campus library. My parents never offered to help. They said it would build character. But when Tyler started college 2 years after me, they paid his entire tuition. He attended a private art school, expensive and prestigious. I remember sitting at the dinner table when they told me, watching my mother's face light up as she described the beautiful campus. I was eating ramen noodles for the 3rd night in a row because I couldn't afford anything else. When I asked why they could afford to pay for Tyler but not for me, my father said I'd already proven I could handle things on my own. Tyler needed more support. He was sensitive, creative, different. Tyler dropped out halfway through his 2nd year. He said the structure was killing his artistic vision. My parents didn't get angry. They said he was brave for following his heart. He moved back into their apartment and stayed there. Years passed. He worked occasionally doing freelance graphic design when he felt inspired, which wasn't often. Mostly he played video games and talked about his big plans for the future. Meanwhile, I graduated with honors and landed a job at a small tech startup in Boston. The company was building innovative software for healthcare providers, and I started as a junior developer. I was good at my job, really good. I worked long hours, learned constantly, and climbed the ladder quickly. Within 2 years, I was a senior engineer. 3 years after that, I became a technical lead. Then something extraordinary happened. A major tech corporation bought our startup. The acquisition meant that everyone with stock options suddenly had money, real money. My shares were worth just over $2 million. I was 28 years old and financially set for life if I was careful. I didn't tell my parents the exact amount. I said work was going well and left it at that. I knew what would happen if they knew the truth. They'd expect me to bankroll Tyler's dreams, whatever those happened to be that week. Every time I visited home, the dynamic was the same. Tyler would be sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, while my mother bustled around making his favorite meals. My father would be reading the newspaper occasionally, looking up to ask me how work was going, but never really listening to the answer. The conversation always turned to Tyler, how talented he was, how he just needed the right opportunity, how the world wasn't ready for his vision yet. On my 29th birthday, my mother made me a simple pasta dinner. 2 weeks later, for Tyler's 26th, they threw a party. They invited 20 people, ordered catering, bought an expensive cake. When I pointed out the difference, my mother said Tyler needed the encouragement because he'd been feeling down lately. I was strong enough to not need validation. That became the pattern. I was strong, independent, capable. I didn't need anything. Tyler was sensitive, misunderstood, fragile. He needed everything. And I accepted it because I thought that's what good daughters did. They understood. They didn't make waves. They were grateful for whatever scraps of attention came their way. I want to be clear about something. I loved my family. Despite everything, I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted them to see me, really see me the way they saw Tyler. But you can't make people value you. You can only decide whether you'll keep accepting less than you deserve. 6 months before everything fell apart, I heard news that changed the trajectory of my life, though I didn't realize it at the time. The building where my parents lived was going up for sale. The old landlord had passed away, and his children wanted to liquidate his assets quickly. The building was 4 stories, 8 units total, in decent condition but needed updating. The location was excellent, right in a neighborhood that had become increasingly desirable. The asking price was $1.8 million. I sat with that information for several days. I'd been looking at investment properties, ways to diversify beyond my stock portfolio and savings. Real estate made sense. But this wasn't just any building. This was my parents' home, the place where I grew up. If someone else bought it, they might raise the rent significantly or even convert it to condos. My parents, living on modest retirement savings and my father's small pension, couldn't afford a substantial increase. I did the math carefully. I had enough for a significant down payment, and my income as a senior technical lead, now pulling in almost $200,000 a year, meant I could easily qualify for the remaining mortgage. The rental income from the other 7 units would more than cover the monthly payments, property taxes, and maintenance costs. It was actually a smart investment independent of the family connection. But I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a factor. Part of me, the part that still desperately wanted my parents to see my worth, thought, this could be it. This could be the moment they realized what I'd accomplished, what I could do for them. I imagined telling them after the purchase was complete, seeing the surprise and gratitude on their faces. Maybe I'd lower their rent or eliminate it entirely. A gift from a daughter who'd made good. I decided to keep it secret until everything was finalized. I didn't want them to worry during the process, and truthfully, I wanted the moment of revelation to be perfect. I contacted a real estate attorney, a sharp woman named Julian Hayes, who specialized in property transactions. She walked me through every step. The inspection revealed some issues, mostly cosmetic and minor infrastructure updates. Nothing that concerned me. The sellers were motivated and accepted my offer quickly. 3 months later, I owned the building. All the paperwork was in my name. I was a landlord. The existing lease agreements with all tenants, including my parents, remained valid. Everything was legal and clean. I had Julian set up a property management company to handle the day-to-day operations, keeping my ownership quiet for now. I told myself I'd reveal it when the time was right, maybe at Thanksgiving or Christmas, making it a special moment. But work intervened. A major project came up requiring my presence in San Francisco for an extended period. We were partnering with a West Coast firm, and as technical lead, I needed to be on site. The trip was scheduled for 10 days. I'd be back in Boston by the end of the month. 2 weeks before I left, I went home for dinner. It was a Sunday evening, and my mother had made pot roast. Tyler was there, of course, still living in the same room he'd had as a teenager. During dinner, the conversation turned to money, as it increasingly did. My mother cleared her throat in that way she had when she was about to ask for something. Bernadette, honey, Tyler has a wonderful business opportunity. He needs some startup capital. We were thinking maybe you could help him out. I asked what the opportunity was. Tyler launched into a vague explanation about a creative collective, some kind of shared studio space where artists could collaborate and sell their work. He needed $5,000 to secure a spot. When I pressed for details, business plans, projections, anything concrete, he got defensive. He said true art couldn't be reduced to spreadsheets and numbers. I said I couldn't help. I explained that my money was tied up in long-term investments, which was true, just not in the way they understood. My father frowned. Your brother is family, Bernadette. Family helps family. I pointed out that I'd helped myself through college and my entire career without asking them for a dime. That was different, my mother said. You never needed help. You were always so capable. The implication hung in the air. Tyler needed help because he was less capable, but somehow that made him more deserving. I felt the familiar sting but swallowed it down. I couldn't give Tyler $5,000, not because I didn't have it, but because I knew exactly where it would go. Into some half-formed idea that would evaporate within weeks, leaving nothing but excuses about how the world didn't understand his vision. The evening ended tensely. I left feeling guilty, which I now recognize was exactly what they wanted. Several days later, as I was packing for San Francisco, my mother sent a text message. "Tyler will be moving back home permanently. We're rearranging some things to make room for him. Just wanted to let you know." I typed back a simple okay and thought nothing more of it. I was focused on the upcoming trip, on the presentations I needed to prepare, on proving myself once again in a room full of people who'd doubt me until I showed them what I could do. I boarded the plane to San Francisco with my mind already 3,000 miles away from Boston, from my family, from the apartment building I secretly owned. If I'd known what I was coming home to, I might have paid more attention to that text message. I might have asked what rearranging meant. But I didn't. And maybe that's exactly why what happened next needed to happen. The flight back from San Francisco landed at Logan Airport at 8:30 on a Friday evening. I was exhausted. 10 days of back-to-back meetings, presentations, and negotiations had drained me completely. The project had gone well better than expected, and my boss had hinted at another promotion in the works. But all I wanted was to sleep in my own bed. I took a cab directly to my parents' building. I still kept a room there, used it when I visited, which was usually once or twice a month. My own apartment, a small studio in downtown Boston, felt too empty sometimes. Despite everything, I still craved that connection to family, to the place where I grew up. I had my key. I let myself in quietly, not wanting to disturb anyone if they were already asleep. The apartment was dark and silent. I set my suitcase down in the hallway and flipped on a light. Something felt different immediately. The furniture in the living room had been rearranged. The couch was against a different wall. My mother's favorite reading chair was gone entirely, replaced by a large gaming setup complete with an enormous monitor and an expensive-looking chair. Tyler's doing, obviously. I walked down the hallway toward my room, toward the bedroom I'd slept in since I was 7 years old. The door was closed. There was a piece of paper taped to it, a note written in my mother's distinctive handwriting. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled it off and read the words under the dim hallway light. "Bernadette Tyler needs this room now. Your things are in the basement. You can stay there when you visit. It's more private anyway." I read it 3 times. Each time the words stayed the same, but their meaning somehow deepened, cutting a little further into something I didn't know could still hurt. I turned the doorknob, pushed the door open. The room was completely transformed. Gone was my old bed, the desk where I'd done my homework, the bookshelf that held every novel I'd loved growing up. In their place was Tyler's stuff. A new bed, unmade and messy. His clothes scattered across the floor. Posters for bands I'd never heard of covering the walls where my degrees had once hung. There was no trace of me left. It was like I'd been erased. I stood there for a long moment, trying to process what I was seeing, what it meant. Then I walked back through the apartment and found the basement door. The stairs creaked as I descended into the cold, damp space below. A single bare bulb provided weak light. And there, shoved into a corner among the building's ancient furnace and boxes of Christmas decorations, were my things. My belongings had been crammed into cardboard boxes, no care taken with packing. I could see my clothes wrinkled and crushed books thrown in haphazardly framed photos face down. There was an old bed frame leaning against the wall, a stained mattress on the floor beside it. No sheets, no pillows. The basement smelled of mildew and heating oil. There was a small window at ground level covered with grime. This was where they expected me to stay. In a basement. Like I was storage. Like I was something to be put away and forgotten. I pulled out my phone and called my mother. It rang 4 times before she answered, her voice sleepy. "Hello, Mom, it's me. I'm home." I found the note. Oh, good. There was no apology in her voice, no explanation, just a simple acknowledgement. You got in safely then. What is this about? Why is all my stuff in the basement? She sighed, and I could picture her sitting up in bed, annoyed at being disturbed. Bernadette. We talked about this. Tyler is moving back permanently. He needs a proper room to work from to build his business. You're hardly ever here anyway. You have your own place. The basement is perfectly fine for the few times you visit. It's actually more private. You'll have the whole floor to yourself. That room was mine since I was a child. You're 29 years old. You don't need a childhood bedroom anymore. Tyler is here full-time. Be reasonable. Did you even ask me? Did you think maybe I deserved a conversation before you just erased me from this apartment? Her tone shifted, becoming sharp. Don't be dramatic. We're not erasing you. We're making practical choices. Tyler needs support right now. You're independent. You have a career. You're fine. Why are you making this difficult? I heard my father's voice in the background. What's going on? My mother covered the phone, muffled conversation, then came back. Your father says the basement is perfectly adequate. Many people would be grateful to have a space to stay when visiting family. Something inside me cracked open, then some reservoir of hurt I'd been storing for 29 years. I realized with sudden painful clarity that nothing I ever did would be enough. I could cure cancer. I could solve world hunger. I could hand them a winning lottery ticket, and they'd still look past me to see if Tyler needed anything. I'm not staying in a basement, I said quietly. Then where will you stay when you visit? My mother's voice held a challenge, like she expected me to crumble to accept whatever they offered because I had no other choice. I won't be visiting. Don't be childish, Bernadette. I'm not. I'm being clear. I'm not staying in a basement, and I'm leaving. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I looked around at the cold, damp space they'd relegated me to, and felt something shift fundamentally in my chest. For the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely done. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat on that stained mattress in the basement until 3 a.m, staring at my packed-up life in cardboard boxes, feeling something I'd never quite felt before. It wasn't just anger, though there was plenty of that. It was clarity. Cold, sharp, unavoidable clarity about exactly who I was to my family and exactly what I'd been accepting all these years. At dawn, I went upstairs and started moving my things. I made multiple trips to my car, loading boxes into the trunk and back seat. The apartment was still quiet. My parents were asleep. Tyler, too, probably dreaming in what used to be my room. I was careful to be silent. I didn't want a confrontation, didn't want to hear more justifications about why this was reasonable, why I should understand why I was being difficult. By 7 a.m, I'd removed everything that mattered. I left behind some old textbooks and a few items of clothing I didn't care about anymore. Let them throw it out or give it to Tyler. I didn't need any of it. What I needed was already in my car. I was heading toward the door when I heard movement from the kitchen. My mother appeared in her bathrobe, her hair still messy from sleep. She stopped when she saw me with my last box, the one containing my framed college diplomas and a few precious books from childhood. You're actually leaving? She sounded surprised, like she genuinely hadn't expected me to follow through. I am. Bernadette, don't be silly. So you're upset about the room. Fine, but you're blowing this out of proportion. I set the box down carefully. I want to make sure I understand this correctly. You gave away my room without asking me. You put my belongings in a damp basement. You expected me to just accept it. And now you're telling me I'm overreacting. We made a practical decision about space allocation. Tyler is here every day. You visit maybe twice a month. That's not the point, Mom. The point is, you didn't even consider asking me. You didn't think my feelings mattered enough to warrant a conversation. She crossed her arms. Family means making sacrifices, Bernadette. I've been making sacrifices my whole life. You just never noticed because I never complained. My father emerged from the hallway looking annoyed at the noise. What's all this commotion? Your daughter is throwing a tantrum about the room situation. My mother said, her voice taking on that martyred tone she used when she wanted sympathy. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm leaving. My father looked at me like I was a stranger. Over a bedroom. You're really going to cause family drama over something this petty. It's not about the bedroom. It's about 29 years of being treated like I don't matter. That's not true, my mother protested. We've always loved you. Love isn't the same as value. You love me, I know that. But you don't value me. You never have. Tyler appeared then, stumbling out of my former room in pajama pants and a t-shirt, yawning. What's everyone yelling about? Your sister is upset we gave you her room, my father said. Tyler looked at me and shrugged. Dude, you barely use it. I'm here all the time. It makes sense. That casual dismissal, that thoughtless certainty that his needs mattered more than mine, crystallized everything. I picked up my box. I need to go. Bernadette. My mother's voice took on a warning edge. If you walk out that door now, don't expect us to welcome you back anytime soon. It was a threat, a power play. She expected it to work because it always had before. The threat of withdrawal, of love, of family connection had always been enough to keep me in line. But something had changed. Maybe it was the 10 days away, the success I'd had in San Francisco, the reminder that I was good at what I did, that I had worth beyond this apartment and these people. Maybe it was just that I'd finally reached my limit. I won't need your welcome, I said quietly. My father's face hardened. Fine. Leave then. We don't need this attitude in our home. I walked to the door. My mother called after me one more time. You're being selfish. You're choosing pride over family. I turned back. No, I'm choosing self-respect. There's a difference. I left. I carried that last box down 3 flights of stairs, loaded it into my car, and drove away from that building without looking back. My eyes burned, but I didn't let myself cry, not yet. I drove to my studio apartment downtown, parked in the underground garage, and finally let myself feel everything. I cried for an hour, deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I'd kept locked away for decades. I cried for the little girl who brought home straight A's and got a nod. I cried for the college student who worked herself to exhaustion while her brother was handed everything. I cried for every birthday that was forgotten, every achievement that was minimized, every time I'd been told I was too sensitive when I asked for basic consideration. And then I stopped crying. I washed my face, made myself coffee, and sat down at my kitchen table. I thought about the building, the one I owned, the one they were still living in, without knowing I held every card. I'd bought it intending to help them, to protect them. But they'd just shown me exactly what they thought of my protection, my consideration, my love. I wasn't going to tell them about the building to hurt them. I wasn't even angry anymore, not really. I was just done. Done trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Done accepting crumbs and calling it a feast. Done being invisible. I pulled out my phone and called Julian Hayes, my real estate attorney. It was Saturday morning, but I knew she worked weekends. She answered on the second ring. Julian, it's Bernadette. I need to talk to you about the building. I want to know exactly what my rights and options are as the owner. There was a pause, then her professional voice. Of course. Would you like to come by the office on Monday? I need to know now. What are my obligations to current tenants? What can I do? Another pause, longer this time. Bernadette, is everything okay? Everything is fine. I just need to understand my position clearly. She walked me through it. The existing lease agreements were valid until their expiration dates. I had to honor those. My parents' lease, along with the other tenants, was set to expire in 6 months. After that, I could choose whether to renew and under what terms. I could also choose to renovate the building, which would require giving proper notice to tenants that leases wouldn't be renewed. The law protected tenants from sudden displacement, but it also protected my rights as a property owner. If I wanted to substantially renovate, I could do that. I just had to follow the correct procedures and timelines. Massachusetts law required 60 days' notice for non-renewal of a lease. Everything had to be documented, formal, legal. What if I wanted to renovate extensively, like gut renovation level? Then you'd notify all tenants that leases won't be renewed due to planned renovation. You'd give them the required 60 days. After they vacate, you can do whatever you want with your property. I thanked her and hung up. I sat with the information for a long time, watching the morning light move across my kitchen floor. I thought about revenge, about justice, about what I actually wanted, and I realized I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted them to understand that their actions had consequences, that you can't treat people like they're disposable and expect them to keep coming back. I wanted them to know that the daughter they'd dismissed, the one they'd put in a basement, was the one who'd been holding them up all along. And when she let go, they'd feel the fall. I didn't contact my family for 2 months, not a single call, text, or email. At first, my mother tried to reach me. The messages started apologetic, or at least what passed for apologetic in her vocabulary. "Honey, I think we all overreacted. Call me when you're ready to talk like adults." Then they became annoyed. "This silent treatment is childish, Bernadette. You're being ridiculous." Finally, they turned accusatory. "I can't believe how ungrateful you're being, after everything we've done for you." I didn't respond to any of it. I blocked their numbers for a while just to give myself peace. Tyler sent one message. "Hey, sis, sorry about the room thing. I didn't know you'd freak out." No acknowledgement that maybe he should have asked, no real apology, just surprised that I'd reacted at all. I deleted it without responding. Those 2 months were transformative. Without the constant background noise of family obligation and guilt, I could hear myself think clearly for the first time in years. I threw myself into work and was rewarded with a promotion to engineering director. My salary jumped to $240,000 a year. I started going to therapy, something I'd always meant to do but never prioritized. My therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, helped me understand that what I'd experienced was a lifetime of emotional neglect disguised as high expectations. "You were parentified," she explained during one session. "Made to be an adult before you were ready, expected to handle everything on your own, while your brother remained the child who needed care. That's not your fault, and it's okay to be angry about it." I also started doing things for myself. I took a weekend trip to Maine, stayed in a bed and breakfast, read books by the ocean. I joined a rock climbing gym and discovered I loved it. I went on dates with a software engineer named Adrian who I'd met at a tech conference. He was kind, funny, and interested in me as a person, not what I could do for him. We were taking things slow, but it felt healthy, balanced. My life was better without my family in it. That realization didn't make me happy exactly, but it made me certain. I wasn't cutting them off to punish them. I was protecting myself from people who'd proven they couldn't value me the way I deserved. During those 2 months, I worked with Julian to prepare for the building renovation. I hired an architect, a brilliant woman named Naomi Tran, who specialized in historic building conversions. Together, we developed a plan to transform the aging 4-story walk up into 8 modern upscale apartments. New plumbing, updated electrical, refinished floors, modern kitchens and bathrooms. The estimated cost was $500,000, but Naomi's projections showed the renovated units could rent for double the current rates. It was a sound investment. More importantly, the renovation would require the building to be vacant. That meant all tenants, including my parents, would need to leave. I wasn't doing this to evict them specifically. The building genuinely needed updating, and as an investment property, it made financial sense. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a small, quiet satisfaction in knowing they'd have to leave the home they'd made so unwelcoming to me. Julian prepared all the necessary legal documents. Formal notices to all 8 units that leases would not be renewed due to planned extensive renovation. Everything was done by the book, completely legal and proper. The notices would go out 3 months before the leases expired, giving everyone 90 days to find new housing, 30 more than legally required. On a Thursday afternoon in late October, exactly 2 months after I'd left their apartment, I authorized Julian to send the notices. They went out by certified mail requiring signatures. Every tenant in the building, including David and Margaret at Unit 3B, received identical letters informing them that their lease would not be renewed and they had 90 days to vacate. I was in a meeting when my mother's call came through. I'd unblocked their numbers a week earlier, knowing this moment was coming. I let it go to voicemail. She called 4 more times in succession. So did my father. Finally, a text came through. "Call us immediately. Emergency." I waited until I got home that evening. Then I called my mother back, keeping my voice neutral. "You called. Did you see what happened? We got an eviction notice. Some new owner is kicking us out." "It's not an eviction," I corrected calmly. "Your lease is simply not being renewed. That's different. Bernadette, this is serious. We've lived here for 20 years. They're giving us 90 days to leave. We can't afford anywhere else. The rents in this city have gotten insane." "I know. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Can't you help us? Maybe you could co-sign a lease somewhere or let us stay with you temporarily while we figure things out." There it was. The assumption that despite everything, despite how they'd treated me, I'd swoop in to save them. I took a breath. "I can't do that, Mom." "What do you mean you can't? You're our daughter, and you put me in a basement. You gave away my room without asking. You told me I was being dramatic when I was hurt. You've spent my entire life making it clear that Tyler's needs matter more than mine. That's not fair." We made a practical decision about space, and the building owner made a practical decision about renovation. Sometimes practical decisions are hard on people. You'll figure it out. You always told me I would. The silence on the other end was long. Then, in a voice I'd never quite heard from her before, small and uncertain, she said, "Are you really not going to help us? I'm not going to fix this for you." "No. You'll have to handle it yourselves." I hung up. My hands were steady. I felt no triumph, no joy. Just a quiet sense of boundaries finally being established. The next 3 weeks were a storm of messages and calls from my family, each more desperate than the last. My father left voicemails about family obligation and loyalty. My mother sent long text messages detailing how hard they'd worked to raise me, how much they'd sacrificed. Tyler predictably blamed me for not helping them, as if their housing situation was somehow my responsibility. They tried everything: guilt, anger, bargaining. My mother even tried the occasional olive branch, suggesting we could talk through our differences if I'd just help them with this one thing. But I stayed firm. I didn't engage with the drama. I didn't defend myself or explain. I just maintained my boundary. "No, I cannot help you with housing." What they didn't know was that I was watching everything unfold from a very specific vantage point. As the property owner, I received regular updates from the management company about tenant situations. I knew my parents had contacted 3 different housing lawyers, all of whom told them the same thing. The notice was legal. They had to leave. I knew they'd applied for 6 apartments and been rejected from 4, the other 2 being too expensive, even with Tyler finally desperately taking on full-time freelance work. I knew because I owned the building that was causing them so much stress. And they still had no idea. The revelation came in early November, scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Julian had arranged a meeting at her office with my parents. They thought they were meeting with the new building owner to negotiate to perhaps plead their case for an extension or exception. The management company had told them the owner had agreed to a face-to-face meeting, which was unusual but not unheard of. They'd jumped at the chance. I arrived early, sitting in Julian's conference room looking out at the Boston skyline. I'd dressed professionally, a navy blazer and slacks, my hair pulled back. I wanted to look like what I was, a successful businesswoman, someone who belonged in rooms where decisions were made. Julian briefed me one final time on the legalities, making sure I understood I was on solid ground, no matter how the conversation went. At 2:00 exactly, the receptionist showed my parents into the conference room. My mother entered first, her face tight with stress. My father followed, looking older than I remembered. And behind them, Tyler, slouching in a wrinkled button-down shirt, probably the most professional thing he owned. They stopped dead when they saw me. My mother's mouth literally fell open. "Bernadette, what are you doing here?" I stood up, gestured to the chair across the table. "Please sit down." "I don't understand." My father looked around, confused. "Where's the building owner?" I'm the building owner." The words hung in the air. 3 faces stared at me with identical expressions of shock and disbelief. Finally, Tyler laughed a sharp, disbelieving sound. "What? No, you're not. You can't afford a whole building." I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of the deed, the purchase agreement, all the legal documents proving ownership. My name was on every page. I bought the building 6 months ago. I am the new owner. I am the one who sent the non-renewal notices. My mother grabbed the folder, hands shaking as she flipped through pages. "This is impossible. You never said anything. Why wouldn't you tell us?" "I didn't tell you because I originally bought it as an investment and to protect you. I was planning to reveal it as a surprise, maybe lower your rent, or let you live there rent-free. I wanted to take care of you. So why are you kicking us out?" My father's voice was hard, angry. "I'm not kicking you out. I'm choosing not to renew your lease because I'm renovating the building. It's a legitimate business decision. All 8 units are being emptied for renovation. You're not being singled out. But we're your family." My mother's voice cracked. I met her eyes. "Yes, I'm your family. The daughter you put in a basement. That was a misunderstanding. We told you that. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. You chose Tyler's comfort over my dignity. You chose to dismiss my feelings rather than have a conversation. And when I told you I was hurt, you told me I was being dramatic and selfish. We made a practical decision about space. My father insisted the same line they'd been using for months. And I'm making a practical decision about my property. I'm renovating it to increase its value. You have 90 days to find somewhere else to live. That's more notice than I'm legally required to give." Tyler leaned forward, his face flushed. "So what, you're doing this to punish us? That's insane. You're really going to make your own parents homeless over a bedroom? You're not going to be homeless. You're going to have to find housing you can afford, which might mean downsizing or moving to a less expensive neighborhood. Millions of people deal with this. You'll figure it out. You're all very resourceful. You've told me so my whole life about how capable everyone is." My mother tried a different tactic, her voice going soft and pleading. "Honey, please. I know we made mistakes. We should have handled the room situation better. But this is too much. You can't do this to us." "I can, actually. And I am. Julian here has confirmed everything is legal and proper." Julian nodded. "The notices are valid. The renovation plans are legitimate, Mrs. Morrison is well within her rights as a property owner." "Bernadette," my father said, trying to sound authoritative, "you need to reconsider this. Family doesn't treat each other this way." I looked at him for a long moment. "You're right. Family shouldn't treat each other the way you treated me. But you did, for my entire life. And I accepted it because I thought that's what daughters were supposed to do. But I'm done accepting less than I deserve." "This is about money," Tyler spat. "You made some money and now you think you're better than us. This has nothing to do with money and everything to do with respect. I've been successful, yes. I worked hard for it. And you never once acknowledged it." "Not really. You were too busy explaining why Tyler needed support, why I needed to understand why I should just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention came my way." My mother was crying now, tears running down her face. "Please don't do this. Where are we supposed to go?" "There are apartments available all over the city. You'll need to adjust your expectations and budget. Tyler will need to contribute more financially. It's called being an adult." I stood up, signaling the meeting was over. "You have 90 days. I suggest you start looking. Julian will handle any questions about the process. I don't think we need to speak directly again." "You're really going to do this?" My father said, not a question, but a statement of disbelief. "I'm really going to do this. And in the future, when you put someone in a basement, remember that they might own the whole building you're standing in." I walked out of the conference room without looking back. My heart was pounding, but I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd stood up for myself. I'd drawn a line. I'd stopped being invisible. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, small and broken. I can't believe this is happening. Julian's voice professional and firm. You have 90 days. I'd recommend starting your search immediately. The rental market moves quickly this time of year. I didn't wait to hear more. I left the building, walked to my car, and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment. Then I drove to the waterfront, parked, and watched the harbor for an hour. I waited for the guilt to come, the second thoughts, the urge to run back and fix everything. It never came. Instead, I felt something I'd been chasing my whole life. Peace. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it with Adrian and his family, warm and welcoming people who asked about my work and actually listened to the answers. Christmas approached. My parents found an apartment, finally a 2-bedroom in a neighborhood 40 minutes outside the city. The rent was lower, but the place was smaller and older. Tyler had to get a real job, full-time work at a marketing firm because they needed his income to qualify for the lease. I heard all this through a mutual family friend, a cousin who couldn't believe the drama and kept me updated despite my requests that she didn't. I didn't reach out. Neither did they not after that meeting. The silence felt earned on both sides. The building renovation started in January, right on schedule. The contractors gutted the interior, updated all the systems, refinished the hardwood floors. Naomi's design was beautiful, preserving the historic character while modernizing everything that mattered. The kitchens got stainless steel appliances and granite counters. The bathrooms became spa-like retreats. Each unit got washer-dryer hookups and central air conditioning. By June, the renovation was complete. The building was stunning. I kept the top-floor unit for myself, a 2-bedroom with exposed brick and huge windows overlooking the street. The other 7 units rented immediately at rates that were double what the old tenants had been paying. My investment had paid off spectacularly. The building was worth nearly $4 million now, and the rental income covered all my costs, plus gave me an additional $70,000 a year in passive income. I moved into the penthouse on a warm Saturday in July. Adrian helped me carry boxes up the stairs, the same stairs I'd climbed 1,000 times as a child. But now they led to something that was truly mine, something I'd built myself. My life transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined a year earlier. The promotion to engineering director led to another one, VP of engineering, with a salary that broke $300,000. Adrian and I got serious, moved in together in my new place, talked about the future in concrete terms. I made friends, real friends, through climbing and work and the neighborhood. I started volunteering at a nonprofit that helped young women get into tech careers, mentoring girls who reminded me of my younger self. I was happy, genuinely deeply happy. Not because I'd gotten revenge on my family, but because I'd finally chosen myself. The only contact I had from my parents came 8 months after the meeting. An email from my mother, brief and stiff. Your father had a health scare. He's fine. The doctors say it was just stress and high blood pressure. I thought you should know. We're managing. Tyler has been a great help. I wrote back an equally brief response. I'm glad Dad is okay. Take care. I didn't offer to visit. I didn't offer help. I just acknowledged the information and moved on. Some people asked me if I regretted it, if I felt guilty about what happened. The truth was complicated. I didn't regret standing up for myself. I didn't regret establishing boundaries or refusing to be treated poorly anymore. But I was sad. Sad that it had come to this, sad that my family couldn't love me in a way that felt like love. Sad that Tyler had been so enabled he'd never learned to stand on his own. Mostly, though, I'd made peace with it. You can't make people value you. You can only decide whether you'll keep accepting being undervalued. I'd spent 29 years trying to earn something that should have been freely given. I'd finally stopped trying. And in that stopping and that letting go, I'd found something better. I'd found myself. A year to the day after I left that basement, I hosted a dinner party in my penthouse. Adrian, my climbing friends, my mentor from work, Julian, the attorney, even Naomi, the architect. We ate good food, drank wine, laughed until our sides hurt. At one point, standing on my balcony looking out at the city lights, Julian raised her glass. To Bernadette, she said, Who taught us all that the best foundation isn't made of concrete? It's made of knowing your worth. Everyone cheered. I smiled, feeling the warmth of chosen family of people who saw me and valued me exactly as I was. This was what family should feel like. This was what I deserved. And I'd built it myself, brick by brick, choice by choice, boundary by boundary. Someone asked me once if I'd ever reconcile with my parents. I said I didn't know. Maybe someday, if they could acknowledge what had happened, if they could take responsibility for their part. But I wasn't holding my breath. And I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore to live my life. I had everything I needed right here. In this building I owned, in this life I'd created, in this person I'd become, when I stopped trying to shrink myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. They thought when they pushed me to the basement that I had nowhere else to go. They thought I'd come crawling back, grateful for whatever scraps they offered. They never knew I'd already built my own foundation, bought my own building, created my own home. Not just the physical structure, though, that was satisfying in its own way, but the internal foundation, the one made of self-respect and boundaries, and the knowledge that I was worth more than they'd ever been willing to give. That foundation held. It holds still. And I'm standing on it higher than they ever imagined I could reach. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own self-respect? Drop a comment and let me know your story. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family or had to walk away from people who couldn't value you, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in the hardest moments. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to put yourself first. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're worth more than being anyone's afterthought basement dweller or second choice. You deserve a room at the table. And if they won't give you one, build your own table. You're stronger than you know.